But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot see.
Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. The professionals with Stu and Mitch and myself. Morning, lads.
Morning, how are you?
Steve.
All good, lads. All good. And it's match day in 4 hours' time. I'll be at St James's Park to watch Newcastle United take on Fulham. And yes, exciting times ahead for Newcastle fans over the next couple of months. Obviously, semi-final to look forward to. Who knows, a final. And consolidation, let's hope, in the Champions League places. That'll start again today, of course. But plenty to talk about in the next hour. Everybody in the chat, good morning, and morning to the moderators. We've got a few questions coming in already. So let's start with that, because it is your platform. We do like to hear from you. John Askew is in bright and early to say, good morning, everyone. How can financial fair play be fair when players pass 30? Our defence currently has 3 players over 30 who will all need replacing at some stage for obvious reasons. We will just be replacing like for like, so not really improving the squad. But any money spent will be added to the financial fair play calculation. That's very restrictive and seems unjust. I hope you can fathom what I'm on about. It's a bloody good point, isn't it, Stu, really? Because financial fair play is set down. I mean, every time I mention it on the Three Amigos, there's a chuckle of laughter from everybody else on the panel. But unfortunately, FFP is something Eddie keeps bringing up, and I do have to keep mentioning it. It does seem as if it's there to be abused. You know, we just need to look at how much the likes of Chelsea and Everton, etc., have spent. Chelsea continue to find ways around it. Will they ever be punished for that in the future? Who knows? But yeah, I mean, he's got a great point about that back four, because that back four is on the aged side, isn't it?
It is, but that's why there seems to be that they're looking to recruit younger players now, aren't they?
Yeah.
To get the balance. And it's up to us who we sign, and we know the pitfalls and everything else. But I still think Eddie Howe mentioning financial fair play, every opportunity you can get, is a smokescreen. And my opinion regarding how the club's doing business, and they keep saying that there's nothing imminent. There we go. And that's without a drink as well. I haven't even started yet. So with what the club I think are doing, they quite rightly think like they've ascertained their targets, and then they've done their own valuation. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's bids in for certain players with a take it or leave it. This is what we value a player at, and that's why they're saying, well, nothing's happening as yet. But as it gets nearer the end of the window, there'll be more people saying, okay, is that offer still there? And again, with the agents, we've had 2 people linked in the last 2 days, the lad at Wolves and the lad at Lazio, Neves, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce the Serbian guy's name. But they're both very good players and both fit into a certain role within our team. But that could be agents trying to get them a better deal. And it seems to be the go-to thing now is just mention Newcastle because we apparently have the money. And regarding Chelsea, this Todd Bowley's new at the game of football, isn't he? He's used to American football and stuff. So perhaps he thinks he's got to get a squad of 45 to 50 like they do in American football. And that's why he's just like, going out, I'll have him. Okay, you want him? I'll take him. But ultimately, they can only have a squad of 25. And they have the money from the financial fair play, because I know Mitch has talked about this previously. Their purchase was front-loaded to get rid of the debt, which means they look at what they've done over the last 3 years. It's, stop us if I'm wrong, Mitch, but what they've done over the last 3 years, and the money that they've accrued, they can spend that money. But where this will have a knock-on effect for Chelsea is they seem to be going too gung-ho at it. When it comes to the next few windows, they won't have enough to spend because they've blown their bolt in August and January. So I'm not even concerned about Chelsea, because I believe the way Newcastle are doing it is the right way. It seems to be a more like steady and slow wins the race rather than sprinting and then getting a stitch. You know what I mean? And then irons and then having to stop. And we have something that only a few other teams in the league have, and that's the camaraderie in the dressing room, and that's the team spirit. And I think Brentford and Brighton proved that yesterday. So getting back to the original question, yeah, we bought all the players because that's what was required of us at that time. We needed the experienced players to help steady the ship and help us stay in the Premier League last year. But that was our choice, you know. So I get what he's saying, but if you look at the recruitment since, they seem to be targeting younger players with not sell on value in the way that Ashley was buying them to sell them on, but it means you can get 5 or 6 good years out of someone and still sell them for probably more than what you paid for them if it come to that. So that there's plenty. I honestly believe we've got lots to spend, but if you ask any Newcastle fan, where would you improve the team? And without naming names, there's maybe only 1 or 2 positions where you think, right, we could bring someone in to upgrade this current 11 that we've got. So, and Eddie Howe alluded to that on Friday in his press conference, didn't he? He says we'll have to bring in top quality if we're going to add to the team. So, and the most important thing about it all is we're sitting here in the middle of January and there's not one person getting stressed or worried or panicking that we haven't bought anyone. Look at that in previous windows. So it shows that we as fans have the trust and belief in what the owners are doing. And it's nice because if you remember this window last year, it was check Twitter every 3 minutes, wasn't it? Who was saying and we've been linked with all these players, and now I think they've put their foot in the sand, or they're drawing the line in the sand and said this is how we're going to do business. And when we get linked with big names, you have to be careful as well, because it's not just someone coming in on say $200,000 a week. Yes, that I don't think it'll upset the dressing room if the player was worthy of that. But when I know Keith was speaking about it the other day when he was talking about Callum Hudson-Odoi on $150,000 a week, how could he come in and be our highest earner? So straight away, it's not just that $150,000. You'd have 5 players saying we are better than him or deserve at least that. So then you've got to add 20, 30,000 to, or 40, 50,000 to other people's. So you add that on, there's another $250,000 straight away to add on to his 150. Then you're at $400,000 a week extra. That's 20 million a year, if my maths are right. So that's how they have to be careful with this until the sponsorship comes in. But even when they do, and I still refer to the fact that I've said many times that the PIF are here to make money, and they'll spend what it takes to make sure that we have sustainability, and we can become self-generating money rather than relying on their funds. They're not benefactors for us. They're there to make sure we're in a position to get all the good money from that sloshing around football at the moment. So I'm very, very relaxed with how the direction that we're going in, but I'm also pretty confident we'll add at least one big name before the window finishes.
Yeah, I mean, look, Peter Guy, Chelsea now after Casiedo for 75 million.
Yeah,
the wheels will fall off if they don't get Champions League next season. I mean, he's right, Mitch, isn't he? It's ludicrous.
I still cannot understand what the strategy is. Are they just going for it in this window because they know they can, understanding that in future windows they're going to be hamstrung and then totally reliant on the player sales that they will obviously have to make. And some of those sales will also include continuing to pay some of those players' wages if they can't shift them because of wage. This is the big risk. I said it on the Amigos. We had this to a lesser degree with Henry Saviat. 5.5-year contract, fell out of favour with every manager, fell out of favour with the fans, and he just hung around. And I think when we just got rid of him last year, you know, and so imagine they've got multiple young players on 7-year contracts, all of whom don't fulfil the potential and they want rid again. I think it's quite baffling. It feels now like it's almost like we're going to go all in on this hand of poker and hope it works. That's really what it feels like. And you're right, it feels like they're making a mockery of FFP, but I think we still don't know the full vagaries and mysteries of that deal. And I think that's shocking, really, at this stage to still have questions over that. I think I would far rather see us spending wisely and prudently and building gradually as we grow, and the spending grows with it. And so it still wouldn't surprise me, again, I could see what I've said for a long time. I think there's no particular strategy other than if the right players become available at the right time, at the right price, they will do the deal. It's as simple as that. And I don't think there's a grand plan as such. But I think this is it's going to be interesting watching how they balance the books and how they get players off their books, because they're signing so many. They're they're at the point where the squad's going to be overloaded. What they're going to do about that? It really is a big risk, much bigger than I think people realise. And to be honest with you, I'd quite far rather watch them do that than watch us do.
Yeah, I would agree. Some interesting faces in the chat today. David Tweed, Scout says, "Thank you, lads, for retweeting the 16-minute clap for Amy. All appreciated. Look, I hope it comes off, mate. That's a tragic story, and our thoughts go out to the family, and let's hope that Newcastle fans can get that underway today. I'll certainly do my bit for you. Gordon, morning, mate. It's good to see you. You go back to the old Toon Talk days on the radio. It was great to have you on the show back in the day. If you can ever jump on the fans forum, please do. I see you tuning in via LinkedIn. I do set a link up on LinkedIn and Facebook. So morning to you. And a big shout out to the lasses at Coast Radio. Gary Skirfield watching on LinkedIn as well. He says, looking forward to another mad day at St James's Park. Yeah, they're mad but enjoyable now, Gary. That's the difference. T-Tank, morning, says, I'll put this one out there. All the talk is about Trossard, but I would take Solly March over him every day of the week. Any thoughts? Well, I mean, he had a good game yesterday. I don't know whether you've seen it, Stu. I mean, first time he scored 2 goals. I mean, his stats were there for all to see on Match of the Day last night. Not very impressive, I've got to be honest, T-Tank. I haven't looked at his Opta stats and all that. I'm just going off what, Match of the Day chose to show last night. And his assists and goals over the last 4 seasons haven't been great. But this season seems to be a better season for him. I've got to be honest, I'd still prefer Trossard. I mean, if you had to flip a coin between the two of them, Stu?
I'd have Trossard on both sides if I was flipping a coin. Definitely. Trossard, he's tried and tested, proven. And like you say, Solly March had a really good game yesterday, but a lot of people did against Liverpool. And yesterday, it was so one-sided, that game, wasn't it? And it was lovely to watch. And it was nice that Brighton are doing it without a ceiling or with a ceiling. I don't know what she's complaining about this week, but they got beat anyway.
Today he was actually well, I watched the Match of the Day this morning. He was actually quite we're terrible. I mean, he couldn't defend indefensible yesterday, let's face it.
Well, what else could he say? The Seagulls were too loud and they put the players off or something. It gets to the point you have to put your hands up and say, right, I'm not going to defend this lot anymore. And that's what they need. But long may it continue, because I wanted Manchester City to win yesterday, because I think we have to be realistic and we're not going to win the league this year. So the teams like Man United, Liverpool, Tottenham, the ones that were below us at the start of play yesterday, we need them to be dropping points. And I'm sure we'll talk about Man United's first goal yesterday a bit later on. But that, for us, personally, it was a bad result. But I know other people, especially in our chat, was saying, no, that's good for us. But we'll go back above them when we win this afternoon anyway. And they've got Arsenal next week as well. They've got Arsenal away at Man United. So, but isn't it nice to be looking at fixtures who Man United and Tottenham are playing rather than who are Burnley and Southampton playing? This is how fast we've come in the space of 12 short months. Because I think it was this weekend that we beat Leeds, or was it next weekend? For only the second win of the season last year.
Yeah, I was there. I mean, go to that now while it's fresh in your memory, because we'll end up talking about something else and forget about it. The offside decision at Manchester United was, I mean, crazy. I mean, he was interfering with play for me. That was my first thought anyway. I thought it was clearly an offside decision, and there didn't seem to be anything other than, oh, yeah, that's a goal.
Both Keith Hackett and Mark Halsey have been online in the last 24 hours explaining that the way the rule change was written makes it so ambiguous that if you look at it from one point of view, he is offside. And if you look at it from the absolute express way that the rule is written, he's not. I think that's a nonsense, because his presence changes the mindset and the positioning of those defenders and the goalkeeper. It must do.
Absolutely.
You're not going to stand and just wave your hand up and like a daisy, hoping the offside flag goes up. Guardiola would rip shreds if that wasn't then given as a goal, because he'd be saying, well, why weren't you making the bloody challenge? You had all the time in the world to do it. How they can say he's not interfering with the play when he makes a move towards the ball goes within 6 inches of his foot, and his presence must have changed the mindset of the goalkeepers and defenders. And for me, that is interfering with the play. But if you look at how the rules are actually written in the rule book, as long as he doesn't touch it, it's onside technically. It's like many things with offside and VAR. It's been changed for change's sakes, and sometimes I still think Cloughie was right. If you're not interfering with a play, what the hell are you doing on the pitch?
Exactly.
And I think
Mitch, you only have to go back
simplification.
1 week. I was going to say, you just have to go about one week in the game Wolves-Liverpool at Anfield. And they gave him offside because he was right away across the far side.
Have you seen the explanation that they've given the Wolves about that VAR decision?
Probably the same camera for Isaac that wasn't in line, so they used shadows or something.
No. The ITV cameraman zoomed in too quick.
Oh, well, there you go.
And that's the official explanation that's been given to Wolves. The ITV cameraman zoomed in too quick. Well, bugger me. We're now in the hands of people who operate zoom lenses. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. And so, again, it comes back to offside needs to be simplified. Yeah, they're off or you're not. We don't need to worry about whether you're a Nats pube off or whether you're 100 miles off. I think if it's close enough not to be seen in real time by a linesman, that's onside. You're not gaining an advantage. This thing where your foot's behind him, but your shoulder's in front of him, you're not gaining an advantage from that. That's not offside. You just think about the spirit of the game and the way it was meant to be. We don't need somebody with a set square coming out measuring pixels on a bloody camera, from a camera picture, which has been zoomed too quick, to try and work out whether you're offside or not. And this whole concept with Rashford's goal, for me, he's offside. He's in a position where he's going to be changing the mindset of defenders and goalkeeper, so he has to be interfering with the play. Whether
the keeper goes out to close him down.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And the defender that was running with him would have got to the ball if he knew he was offside. He would have got the ball well before Fernandes.
Yeah. I mean, VAR was brought in really to try and cut down on some of these, clear and obvious errors, and it's just become a bit of a farce. I've noticed as well a couple of the decisions yesterday on Match of the Day from some of the games where VAR looked at it and there was no referral to the screen. I mean, they could have gone to the screen, of course, but the referee decided to overturn the decision. So things certainly must be changing at head office. Things are getting spoken about, and they're deciding that, they're going to do things in a different way, shape or form. Chippers, I did ask the question by putting it on the screen. It was a shake of the head from Stu.
I can answer it. After me exuberance over Christmas and New Year, if I tried that, I'd end up looking like a lava lamp, so I'm going to have to say no at the moment. Get myself back at the gym.
We'll leave that to somebody a lot more experienced to getting people to do those kind of things. That's Adam Pearson. If you haven't seen his video, it was very funny.
It was funny.
After the game.
I think they're doing a Dan Burn dance-off in Brooklyn Bar today in Dubai with the Dubai Mags.
Fantastic.
I think we've got Danny Guthrie down the day as well, so I'll see if we can get him to do it now.
Yeah, but it's all that, man. The heathen John Justice Allen were doing it last season.
Try and get him to have a pop on one of the shows, mate. It would be good to get him on. But the dancing, I mean, kids did ask us to do it. I have done it in the house. It was called Embarrassing Dad Dancing.
Hey!
We'll leave it at that, but that's another tick in the box and another achievement. John Johnson says, does West Ham form show that it was right not to get Bruno's mate, Paqueta? It's interesting that as well. I mean, again, I keep pointing to Match of the Day. I have managed to watch it this morning rather than last night, so it's fresh in my memory. Obviously, you're at the hands of the editor, Stu, but the name that kept getting mentioned this morning, and he had a lot of the ball, was Paqueta. I mean, he does seem to be one of the players who's doing his bit. Unfortunately, everybody around him at the West Ham team is collapsing like a pack of cards. They're not in a great run of form. I'm not so sure whether it's a good thing that, great, we got Bruno, but I still would have liked Paqueta.
I think so. I mean, you don't become a regular start for Brazil by mistake or by being a bad player, do you? And Paqueta,
unless you're called Fred.
Well, no, but he has a certain role to play in the team, but the one Paqueta's got more of a playmaker role, and they've got an abundance of choice there, haven't they? And during the World Cup and prior to that, he was the one starting. I would still have loved us to sign Paqueta, because I think in tandem with Bruno, it's different. But I think what's happening at West Ham is the same as what's happening at Everton, and more in the news, Chelsea. You know, I don't think the manager's getting much say in who's getting bought, and that is a recipe for disaster as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, you've got Moyes, who has his ways, and he was tried and tested and proven over the last 2 or 3 years with a limited squad. He made a few shrewd additions, and he's managed to get them into Europe 2 seasons in a row, something they'd never done before. And then they start throwing the checkbook at the Scamata and other people. But again, we could have done the same. We could have bought the same players, and would we have got different results? You never know. So if someone's worth 30 million, they're worth 30 million for a reason, or 40 million or 50 million. And maybe he's come into that dressing room and not really wanted to be there. I think his preference would have been to play with his mate for us as well. So there's lots of things behind the scenes out there that we wouldn't know about. But Paqueta, I would have him if West Ham don't want him. We'll take him, because I'm quite sure that him and Bruno together would run riot, especially when we're on the front foot like at home in home games.
Yeah. What about you, Mitch? Would you like to see Paqueta here? I mean, I don't think we've swerved one. I mean, we just wasn't the money that we were willing to pay.
No, and I still don't know how keen we really were on them. My understanding is we did have it pretty much in agreement with the club and never really pressed it home when we were off doing other deals. And then West Ham wanted to start raising the stakes, and we just didn't see the value there. Don't think we swerved one, because he seems to be a player Brazil lean on, particularly when Neymar's not around. You know, and as Stu says, you don't become a duck egg overnight. But how many players have been signed? How many players have we signed with great expectation and spent a lot of money on, and then they've not really been at the right place at the right time? They're not blossomed the way we hope we would. It happens. And then those players sometimes leave Newcastle and do something else elsewhere. Sometimes the club's just not the right fit for them. As Stu says, I don't know how much control Moyes has in who he brings in and who he gets and who he doesn't. I think he gets given presents from the board rather than being asked who he wants. And having to make that work is difficult as a manager, I'm quite sure. So, like you, I don't think we've dodged one. I just don't think he's in the right team at the right time.
Yeah, just your view on Solly Marsh or Trossard, mates. I mean, Blue Rhythm Boy says, is there concern over Trossard's attitudes that I don't think he's handling his wish to leave Brighton very well?
Some players don't. Sometimes you never know whether it's just an agent sitting in someone's ear, and that can really make a big difference to how things happen. We forget still how much control agents have in the game. Between the two, Trossard's I think Marsh has found his role in a system that suits him. And I think that's why he's come on this season. I think he was one of those players that didn't really know what to do with, what was his best position. And I think they found a role that he's happy and suited to. And that's why you've seen him kick on this season, whereas Trossard, I think he could drop into a number of roles and he'd adapt quite happily. And I think he'd adapt to playing with better players around him. And again, that Brighton connection, how many of these people that's talking about it, Brighton still, did Dan Ashworth have a finger on the pulse of to get into their system? And hopefully we're going to, 2-3 years down the line, be reaping the benefit of having him around, picking up players like that and watching how develop them, you know?
Yeah, I'll be Arsenal fans once our game's finished, says John. There was a question that came in about Arsenal from Blue Rhythm Boy. Says, do you think Arsenal are in the driving seat to win the league? It's there to lose, in my opinion, Stu.
Oh, absolutely. I still don't think they'll win it, but it is theirs to lose at the moment, isn't it? Who do
you think will win, Man City?
Yeah, I think Man City will. Yes, there'll be it's probably what they've needed, a bit of siege mentality. Look, the world's against us, and roll the sleeves up, because they've coasted through the season. And then you're seeing people saying that they're a worse team for having Haaland in it, and you know it's. The mind boggles at times. Someone like Haaland, all they need to do is feed him. And the power and pace he's got over the first 10 yards, and he's a natural finisher. I think he would complement any team in the world. So it's very easy to blame him for what's happening. But I think their problem at the moment is at the centre half. They haven't got a settled defence, and that's what's causing them issues. Whereas in the past they hadn't really needed a defence. But I still think Man City will go on a very, very long winning run, and Arsenal will bottle it.
What about you, Mitch? Arsenal to win the league,
Well,
do you think? Or
when
not?
you look at how they're set, they've got points on the board and games in hand, and that's the dream combination. Out of the two, I always prefer to have points on the board because we've seen firsthand what happens to games in hand. Sometimes they disappear like tears in the rain, and then they're gone, and suddenly you don't have the points on the board and you don't have the games in hand anymore. It happens on occasion. So they're in that sort of hot seat for a reason. What would bother me as an Arsenal fan is they've now got 2 charges of not being able to control their players. And the manager runs up and down the touchline like he's swatting flies constantly. And we saw it in our game against them, the minute more he lost his rag on the side, the worse they played on the pitch. And there's a temperament thing there. And it starts with the manager. And that could be their undoing. If they go on a losing streak, for example, they lose 2 or 3 on the bounce, how do they come back from that? I don't think they'll do it with any dignity. That's for sure. And so that would worry me as an Arsenal fan. But it is, at the moment, absolutely theirs to lose.
Yeah, lots of banter going on about Man United. And one of my mates, proper took the huff last night. Actually, I'm not going to name him, but he said he went onto a couple of fans' forums and said, "Oh, great win for Manchester United." I did advise him that probably wasn't a good idea, but ultimately he got a load of stick, and people don't realise that title defeat really, that when Man United overtook us after that 13-point lead, not a 12-point lead. I always point that out. But it was, it's cuts deep still. And a lot of Newcastle fans just won't accept anybody giving Manchester United any praise. So, I'm reading a few of the comments there and a lot of people talking about that. But yeah, believe you me, that is going to become a major rivalry again. And it started now because Manchester United have just overtaken us. Newcastle want to win the day to get back above Manchester United. That's going to be interesting watching that little battle alone, never mind Arsenal winning the league. I'm going to go to the ad break next because the next question from Gary Finnegan is probably going to take a 10-minute answer, to be perfectly honest, about sponsorship. So I'm going to run the ads now. We'll be back after this. A big thank you to all our sponsors, as always. Thanks to Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com and our website skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensaries, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists. You can find them at thegohd.com. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria, and you can find them at mrvickies.co.uk. If you want to make an order, give them a call on 01768 210 102 or email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Thanks to Blowhole Breweries, you can get a selection of beers, and the cans are in the design of the old Newcastle United entertainers strips. Blowholebrewery.co.uk. Thanks to Melly's Carpets and Beds, laying our reputation, one recommendation at a time. The best quality around at the cheapest prices. Melly's Beds and Carpets.co.uk. Email sales@mellysbedsandcarpets.co.uk or give Melly a call on 01670 632 216. And thanks to United Group Travel Limited, UK coach holidays in Morpeth, 01670 362 460 or mobile 07957 141 654. Graham, your driver, Beverly answering your calls and looking after you on your tour. Some great deals coming up there. Get yourself onto the website to check them out. Thanks also to Media Arts, who do all of our videos and help us with the technological side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com. If you want to subscribe to the channel, then hit the subscribe button below. Hit the thumb up, which is the like button, which does us a big favour with the algorithm. And click share. Share it to Newcastle United Facebook groups or Twitter accounts or your own social media to help our community grow. And if you want to join the channel, hit the join button. And for as little as $1.99 a month, you can get some members-only videos and chances to win some fantastic prizes. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and the rest. Don't forget as well that we do events through NUFC Matters. And this one is the next event coming up, Friday, the 24th of February, an evening with Newcastle United legend Steve Howie. Friday, the 24th of February, Tyneside Irish Centre, and tickets are available at £50 from newcastlelegends.com. If you also go onto Voucher and search for the event, you can pick up a bargain on there. Don't forget, we also support the food bank on this channel. www.nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk is where you can find the Matchday Bucket. You can make a virtual donation to the Matchday Bucket 365 days of the year to keep helping the food bank in Newcastle. Just a reminder, we've got Warren Barton here Friday the 27th of January for a meet and greet. He'll do a little talking, a little Q&A. He'll sign anything that anybody wants. It's £10 a ticket, and you can book them from nufcmatters.com. All proceeds from that event are going to the food bank. Big thanks to Warren for that. And Nobby Solano is back in Newcastle Saturday the 25th of March. Tickets are £15. Book those from nufcmatters.com. Those of you who like to go to the Surf Cafe, the one that we announced on Friday sold out in an hour. Obviously, it only holds 30 people. So we are going to book a second date in for that one for Nobby. So just keep an eye out on NUFC Matters and my Twitter timeline at Steve Wraith for info on that. And don't forget, I did forget this on Friday. This is your first clue for John's giveaway, for the members giveaway, 1st to the 4th, 1957. That was your first clue for the members giveaway on the Three Amigos. And okay, into that question, which I promised before the break. Gary Finnegan says, what's the delay in sponsorship? Obviously, the shirt sponsor won't be until next season. Is there a delay in sponsorship, lads? And you know, is there any kind of hints in the, you know, in the Far East, Middle East, and wherever, you know, about these kind of, you know, financial deals that Newcastle might get, you know, on board? Do you think we could see it before the end of the season? There's a lot of questions to ask about that, and a lot of curiosity from fans, I guess, Stu.
Well, I think it's been phased in, and it's been phased in for a reason. You see the gentle introduction of Saudi Airlines, and then there was Monster. What was the third one? The Saudi-related one?
STC.
STC, yeah. So it's shown that and Noon, so we can bring Noon into the conversation as well. So it's shown that there's an appetite to sponsor Newcastle within the region. And if they announce something now, when they've already got sponsors, then you're into a situation where you're having to buy people out, and you're not making that much, because at the moment we're a team that just finished mid-table last season. Whereas if they wait till the end of the season, they can justifiably put on a bigger sponsorship deal, and it covers maybe 5 or 6 different things, because you can get loads of little sponsors. Like Man United have got, I think it's about, is it 30 something sponsors that are associates with them. But the main ones that we have to go at, you look at the stadium, or at least the stand, the East Stand, that can be named. Then you've got the shirts, then you've got whoever makes the shirts. All of this will bring an extra revenue if we're sitting in the Champions League. So I don't think, I might be totally wrong, but I can't see there being an official announcement until our league position's finalised, or sorry, not if, when we win the League Cup at the end of February. Because success breeds success, and people in this region love to be associated with success. And if you've got a successful Newcastle United that's PIF owned, that will attract a lot of people who, for want of a better phrase, it's nice to kiss their ass, because they do dominate what happens in this area.
Yeah, it's good to see that Mitch is still having that effect on people. Michael Wallace says, Mitch, I'm now calling VAR a Nat's pube. That'll get me through the next week. Yes. But Mitch, the sponsorship, I mean, yeah, like Stu says, it's drip feeding, isn't it, I suppose?
Yeah, and you've got to remember there's certain things that may want to replace that. There's contracts in place of, and as we've seen with Funny 88, they're not always just as easy as waving a big sack of cash into a company and saying would like to end this sponsorship deal, please. And the phasing in will come in along with the ability to spend more under FFP. So the two are connected. We haven't brought somebody in who's an expert at getting deals like this done, like you did at Arsenal, for him to just sit in his office and play, Jenga all day. He's not going to be doing that. He's going to be working on deals. The time will come where we do have 30 odd lesser and minor and associate sponsorships, however you want to call them. So I look forward to when we have an associate tractor partner and things like that, like Man U do. Yeah. And it's lining all the deals up and bringing them in, and there'll probably be an optimal point also in the financial accounting to bring those in to make things easier from an FFP point of view. And also, I think Stu's right. I think dipping the toe in the water with Saudi Air and STC and making them official travel partners, as it were, for the trip to Riyadh. That's also getting that out there into the minds of everybody. These are the kind of companies we're going to be dealing with, so get used to it. Because you've got to remember, I do think if we were to bring in the kind of sponsorship that Man City have brought in over the last 18 months, we'd be jumped all over with people going, they're associated companies and this, that, and the other. Well, Man City seem to be able to get anything that's owned or ran by their chairman through any test possible to do some sponsorship. And even the betting sponsor seems as dodgy as heck. And that story seems to have just disappeared. Nobody's talking about it. And I think that, those kind of things we won't see with us, because that's not how PIF will work. They want it done properly and fairly and by the book. And if it means finding legal and fair workarounds without even taking on any criticism for it, that's the way they'll do it. And I think as the club grows, the sponsorship grows, it ain't going to happen overnight, because like I say, there's still quite a lot of contracts in place that either we might not be able to break. I'm quite sure they'll be talking to Castoria, but again, how easy it is, for example, to change that deal with them. And there's a critical time for that. And the critical time for that would probably be round about now, because designs for next season should have already been submitted. This is the way it works. You need to be thinking that far ahead. So I think we're ahead of schedule on the pitch. We're ahead of schedule off the pitch. So I think just a little bit more patience, and then you'll see even more reward.
Hey, Alan, you're not the only person, because I've spoken to a few people who think people could win the league,
Well,
and Newcastle could win the league.
Tell you something, Steve. I've seen some pundits now saying, "Oh, Man United are now in the mix." Hang on a minute. They're on the same point as us. When we were in third, you weren't saying we were in the mix.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Man United, come on. Bloody hell. It's glass half full, glass half empty situation. They're always going to big up them and silly little Newcastle. Well, we're out of position. Well, overachieving, we were told by somebody like Tim Sherwood through the week on one of the shows over here on beIN, assessing Newcastle versus Fulham, the two most overachieving teams in the league. He said, "Oh, thanks."
Steve, can I just how I understand the FFP is when we first got taken over, all the numbers were crunched, and we could have. Everyone was saying we could spend 600 million, which is true. But it's on a 3-year rolling cycle, so 600 million over 3 years. But then you've got to take wages into account, and then when we're getting rid of players, we didn't have many sellable assets. We haven't sold anyone for any transfer money yet. So hopefully that'll happen either this month or in the summer. So if you quite simple math, 600 divided by the 3 years is 200 million a year. We've already spent that in our first year. So we have to then look and say, right, if we're going to spend 200 million this year, by getting extra TV money in, which is all this helps, getting extra revenue from, but the deal with Castori is heavily in Castori's favour, not in Newcastle's favour. It was just about getting money in. So all these additional sponsors that come in will help. And I know we've mentioned on other shows that when you buy a player for 50 million, you don't give them 50 million. It's spread over a period of time. And this, I'm sure Mitch will talk about what Chelsea are doing is suicide at the moment with these 7-year contracts. So the 200 million has to incorporate wages as well. And for getting better players, it's common sense to say we're paying them more money. And we're actually past where we should have been in the first year. So we're actually into the second year's budget already until we can get these sponsorships coming in. And this is why my dad keeps referring to it as we're building a skyscraper. We've got to keep the foundation solid, because we could go like Chelsea. And what do you then become? You just become another Everton, don't you? Where okay, I'll have him, and then get sack anyhow because it's not working. Bring a new manager in, give him all the money, sack him, and look what's happening. You know, it's unsustainable. We're doing it this way. They've made some very, very astute decisions, very wise decisions, and maybe they've got lucky with a couple of other decisions, but everything's going our way. And sometimes, well, I'm a great believer in the harder you work, the luckier you get. And we've got a team behind the scenes that are working extremely hard, and they're deserving this rub of the green. But that doesn't mean to say that they won't spend money, and it doesn't mean to say they have to spend 200 million. They'll spend whatever it takes to get where they want to get to at their pace. What they don't want to be is overachieving when you have to start paying silly wages. I mean, what's that lad at Chelsea on the Silva? 380 grand a week or something like that.
Yeah.
You have one player like that, then it's not unreasonable for someone else in the team to say, well, hang on, I don't want the same as that, but I think I'm worth 300. I think I'm worth 200. And as I touched on earlier, if you get 5 players adding 50 grand to their salary per week, it's crazy, like 50 grand extra week. But you add it up, it comes to 20 million a year. That money needs to come from somewhere. And until we're able to sell players or get the extra revenue in from the sponsorships, because we're selling the ground out most seasons anyway. So the way the club's going is bringing more money in. The additional sponsors will come in, and this is where Darren Eales will excel. He'll bring in sponsorships and partnerships. I think it would be called partnerships rather than sponsorships, or affiliations with people who want to be seen to be associated with the brand. And I think this is why the trip to Riyadh in early December was pivotal, because everyone from the club was there. And they weren't all just there to watch a training game like we did. You know, they were there doing business, and when can we do this? When can we break this contract, or can we? When does that one expire? How do we introduce this? So we're in good hands. Our job as fans is to support those who cross that white line for us and cheer them home, and they're doing exceptionally well, better than any of us envisaged at the start of the season. And that's it. And I like it when people are saying, yeah, but you can't win the league and you can't finish in the top 4. Yeah, we can. Because the League Cup, as I said, is at the end of February. After that, we've got no FA Cup, we've got no European football, and all our so-called challengers will have. So we'll still be in a better shape with 1 or 2 extra additions. We'll be fresher again. So there's no reason why we can't get Champions League football and the FA Cup. And with that, it brings the extra revenue in. So then it's the 200 million that's set aside for that calendar year then becomes 300 or 400. You know, so that's how Chelsea were able to grow over a period of time, because they didn't have any debt, because the owner was absorbing it all. So that's my explanation of FFP.
Yeah, Ifty, I did see your comment. He says, how come you don't have a stand named after you, Steve? Steve Bruce has one. I did see on Twitter, somebody trying to scam him on tickets. He'd said, have you got any tickets for the Steve Wraith stand? I thought it was hilarious, Ifty. I've seen that once or twice before with other people, but yeah, very good. Yeah, there's too many of these scammers. We'll maybe cover that on an Amigos show, because something needs to be done about that. Nigel, I'll come to this one because it's a bit different. Who are your 3 to go down, lads? It's an easy one to answer, I think, in a lot of ways. For in the past, there's always been like a team that's been rooted to the bottom. But it's funny, I was looking at this yesterday, and just listen to this: bottom of the table, Southampton, 15 points. Second bottom, Everton, 15 points. Third bottom, West Ham, 15 points. Bournemouth, fourth bottom, 16 points. Now, then you've got 16th. And 15th are Leicester and Wolves, respectively, 17 points each. Leeds on 14th, 17 points. And then you've got Forest on 30 and 13th, 20 points. So a little bit of a gap there. But you're talking up to 11th place, 12th and 10th place, which is Chelsea on 25 points. God, it's so tight. Once upon a time, there was a top, a middle, and a bottom. Now there's simply a top and a bottom. It's an amazing. Who's going to go down, lads? Who's going to go down? Who wants to go first?
Mitch?
I'll take it first if you like. Bournemouth, Everton, Leeds.
Oof. Leeds, right? Okay, Bournemouth, Everton, Leeds. What about you, Stu?
Go on, Mitch, you were going to say something?
Well, I can elaborate on it because I think Bournemouth will run out of steam. I think Everton, after yesterday, how their fans are getting away with the minimal amount of criticism they're getting after all the shit we got, I'll never know. And they're in a disarray. They're totally in disarray. And we know what that leads to. We've been there. It reminds us of us so much in the 80s in particular. And Leeds, because I know quite a lot of the Leeds lads out here, and they seem to be good in flashes, capable of shooting themselves in the foot. And I don't think they've improved from last year, and they stayed up by the skin of their teeth last year. And I think the other teams around them, I think Forest look more organised, and some of their purchases are now coming to the fore. I think Wolves were never a bad team. They would go through a bad run of form. You look at the players around the other teams around them. Leicester can only get better, and I think Leeds have got that self-destruction potential. You saw it against Villa, and I think you'll see it when they start to lose their temper and they'll get the odd one sent off again, and they become their own worst enemies.
Right.
Yeah. Go on, Stu.
I'll say my three. We've proven last season and the season before, to be fair to Steve Bruce, that momentum is a massive, massive thing when it comes to the squeaky bum time of the season, good and bad. Momentum can be bad as well. But at the moment, you've got the teams like Wolves and Southampton seem to be picking up momentum, and there's teams like Everton and Bournemouth that have got the bad momentum. So I would say Bournemouth and Everton and Forest, because I still think Forest, although they're capable of getting the odd good result and they're trying to buy themselves safety, that in itself can lack cohesion because there's too many chopping and changing, and they will buy more players in this window, and there'll be players that they bought in August that they have to then leave out of the squad. I mean, that's mental, isn't it? If you start thinking about it, and Chelsea's going to be the same as well. So I think Leeds will sneak out. Someone just said that. Yeah, I think Leeds will sneak out with it as well. But for me, Bournemouth seem to be the ones that should be the biggest danger. Everton, if they can't continue the way they're going, and even if they get rid of Lampard, they're going to bring Fireman Sam in again, and they can't give him any money. Whoever comes in, they can't give money to. And that's the flip side of spending too much when you have money at the start, regarding the financial fair play. So Everton can't buy themselves out with trouble. And then to me, Forest, so that's my three: Bournemouth, Everton, and Forest.
Yeah, it's an interesting season at the top and the bottom. So we'll watch that with interest. Sean says, lads, been linked with Milinkovic-Savic yesterday. This would be fantastic. He's a great player.
Sure,
And that's a marquee signing that we need. Yeah, I mean, any thoughts on that, lads? We don't get a great deal, leaked from the club these days, but that's another name added to the mix, isn't it?
Do you want to go, Mitch?
Yeah. One that'll make a few bob on back of shirts as well.
Definitely.
Yeah,
if it was Scrabble, would win. It's the thing about him is he sits outside of the sort of type of players because we're usually said that we're looking at because he's a little older. But again, if the deal's right and the money's there and the player wants to come and everything can be agreed, happy days. Some of these things do gather momentum from agents, of course. We've had the plane spotters out in force again, which I love that. It bits me. It never irritates me. That I think it's quite great. I mean, the last few years has revealed how absolutely inventive and clever our fan base is using modern technology to do all sorts of weird stuff, and I love it a bit. And there's certain rumours and words out there, but again, what I do like is the fact that everything in the club seems to be nicely locked down now. The usual places that stuff would come out, certainly to me and Stu, it doesn't come out that way anymore. It's just absolutely locked down. and I quite like that. I quite like that. Since Ashworth's come in, I'm quite sure he's behind it all. The way the club's doing everything is very, very different. And I'll have, I take me out with them, to be fair, because it must be one of the hardest things to do in Newcastle to lock everything down. I know I've criticised Janice for using the goldfish bowl thing, but in some respects, he is right that every movement and everything is seen by everybody who has an interest in the betterment of the football club. And that's why sometimes things take off and run away. So I think he'd be a great addition to that midfield. He really would. And I don't think he'd take much to bed in the Premiership. And I don't profess to have seen much of him, but it's a name I know, not just because it's long and complicated. It certainly would show that we're tilting a different quality of player than we have before again. And it shows that we're climbing that ladder slowly and surely.
Yeah, Never's agent talk. Yeah, I would imagine so, Roger. There's a lot of talk and a lot of agents talking at the moment, and that's what happens, mate. It's the transfer window. We can never be sure what's true and what's not true that's coming out of the media or the papers. I always say, and I mean, I pick Craig Hope out because he tends to be right, and I know that he has got a close relationship with at least Dad and Amanda, and has done since the takeover. I would always say that some of the stuff he gets is probably nearer the truth than maybe some other journalists who prefer to speculate. So I would just follow Craig Hope, mate. I can't say that he's going to be 100% right all the time, but usually he is fairly spot on with ins and outs. Do you think, guys, that we'll hit a bad run? Says Toon. Personally, I think it's on the horizon. Hope I'm wrong. You know what? I think we're actually going through the bad run now, because I don't think we've hit the ground running as well as we played prior to the, when the Chelsea game was like a hiatus.
Yes.
Then we had the World Cup break. And then I think we've had a little bit of a bad run now, but we're still winning games.
Yes, we're Stockholm syndrome again, isn't it, mate?
We're
just waiting for it to go wrong. We're waiting for it to go wrong. There's people all over the place looking to pick fights over the most stupid and inane things within the fan base because, well, we just want something to get head up about. We need something to be anxious about. Yeah. I think we enjoy it while it's here. We accept that. I think you're right. I think we're probably in a little bit of that bad run now. That result against Sheffield Wednesday wasn't particularly scale the heights. So, I mean, in keeping with Stu's lovely yellow choice of Lacoste today, that's a new colour for you, mate. Very sunny and very Swedish. Let's hope you're not suffering from Stockholm syndrome.
Stockholm, oh, there you go.
No, I'm the misery. I'm the misery on this platform. I'm the doom and gloom merchant. Just ask me brother and ask anybody who sits next to us at the match. I'm proper Stockholm syndrome case, mate.
I get accused of being too positive, don't I? So,
do you remember the lad who used to have the blog, Dr. Gloom?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was fantastic.
I worked with a guy on the door. I worked with a guy in the door who was nicknamed Dr. Gloom, and he used to love it because he was miserable all the time. But yeah, that's another story. Okay, Newcastle play today against Fulham, 2:00 kickoff at St James's Park. It is live on Sky Sports. The game, as usual, is sold out. The visitors took 1,722 tickets in Level 7, according to NUFC.com today. The team news are, of course, Shelby and Target both still out. A late decision this year will be made on Joe Linton. My understanding is that they'll probably go with an unchanged team. If that's true, happy days. There is a threat of a one-match ban for Kieran Trippier and Fabian Schär. That will be lifted, of course, if they avoid bookings today, because then it extends to 10 bookings. Fulham, Robinson is serving his one-match ban after his 5th booking of the season on Thursday night. They have a long-term absentee in Cabano. Shane Duffy is still ill, but other than that, it's a full squad for Fulham travelling to St James's Park today. Mitrovic, of course, who was suspended against Chelsea, is back in the squad today, and one would imagine he will start. Marco Silva's team's on a decent run at the minute. This is a big game. Pre-match, of course, Supermac will be at the Dog and Parrot in just over an hour's time. Gibbo will be at Pumphrey's with John Anderson in just over an hour's time as well. On the VAR, it's Mike Dean, all about him, of course. Robert Jones is the referee. He refereed against Newcastle's win over Chelsea in November. Okay, lads, over to you on this one. I reckon this will be unchanged. And listening to Eddie Howe's team his press conference on Friday, he said, "I will make the final decision," and I believe that. And I think he's got the backing of the club. I think Joe Linton will play. I think Joe Linton will be, he's clearly remorseful for the situation he finds himself in, and he'll be judged by the courts, and that's what was said on this show. We'll leave it at that. But yeah, I think he'll go with an unchanged team. This is about Newcastle United. This isn't about anything else. This is about us having to get back into third place, and the sooner the better, Stu.
Milankovic, Savage. I've been saying it in my head for the last 5 minutes, so sorry.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Please let play the wave, because you didn't ask us. The reason I said his name was, it's funny that Mitch mentioned there about the playing spotters, this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
How the transfer would happen is an agent would probably come first and do a bit looking around. But what people have to understand is this is an international game, and all the agents don't live with the players in the same city. They've got multi-players in multiple different cities scattered around Europe and further afield. So, I mean, it's great to watch and it's good to get excited, but I'm tending to agree with Mitch that he's 28 next month, not Mitch, Savage.
Yeah.
And that's probably at the higher end of what we've been talking about regarding sell-on values and stuff like that. But if we do sign him, fantastic player. Regarding today, I believe you're right. I totally agree with you. I think Joe Elton will play. I think this will be Eddie Howe showed him love that you mentioned and support that you mentioned. And more importantly, it'll give the fans an opportunity to give him his backing as well, because I'm more than sure the guy is full of remorse. Can't condone it at all in the slightest what he's done. But again, he'll be punished outside of football for that, because the offence was outside of football. And it'll give him an opportunity to get on that pitch, put it behind him for 90 minutes and hopefully help us get back into third. And I keep saying 3-1, and I've changed to 3-1 and 4-0 because we're stuck conceding goals. So if anyone wants to have a bet, there's 2 scorelines that I've already put on, and I'll continue to put them on as long as I've got puff in my body. Sorry, that means breath. It's Scottish, sorry. As long as I've got breath in my body, I believe that we'll win 2-0. I can't see Fulham scoring. I don't think this ex-player of ours, Mitrovic, is anywhere near as good as what he's been led out to be, although he's had a good season. He hasn't played against Botman, and that's a big difference. Botman's just as physical, probably stronger, and we'll have the home crowd. I don't think it'll be as loud as it was at times on Tuesday night, and that's expected. But Eddie Howe even referred that himself. He says it's our job as players to lift the team, and it comes out with Joe Linton there, and the players showing their support to him. I think we should win 2-0, but I don't think it'll be as easy as what we think. But we'll win. We will win.
Mitch?
But that's dependent on Friday night, and I'll stick with that. I think we've got everything in we need to put them away, and we should. And it's not going to be straightforward, I'm sure. But we've talked about this with other games where, this is going to be difficult, and then actually, once we've found our stride, and we found our stride early, once we get ahead, we'd never look like losing it. So I don't see why today should be...
Sorry, mate, I'm just laughing at you trying to find your strides. I thought you were going to stand up with your budgie smugglers on again there.
And do the Dan Burn dance.
Do the Dan Burn dance and smuggler.
Strides. So what's he wearing?
So I cannot say anything other than if we play the way we've been playing, we should have enough to put them away. That shouldn't be a problem. And with regards to Joe Linton, I would expect him to be treated the same way I would be if I was under a DUI charge, working in the UK as a general dental practitioner. I would certainly be referred to the General Dental Council under a fitness to practice referral. But I would be working until such time the General Dental Council said, we feel you should not be, or we feel you need to be working under these circumstances. And so that might be rehabilitation, that might be attending Alcoholics Anonymous, that may be working under supervision and proving that your work hasn't been impaired, anything like that. But certainly you'd still be allowed to work, and he should be afforded that. Eddie Howe's made the fantastic, I think his response was fantastic, making sure he got in about education, rehabilitation, and making somebody give back the community, understanding that there could be as many as 5 to 10 people in that ground today whose lives have been affected by drunk driving. And so I think the club has got to be seen to be doing something positive about it, rather than And you don't always achieve everything just by getting the stick out and beating somebody senseless. The world's more civilized than that, and we should be able to encourage. I'm quite sure the rest of the dressing room will have something to say to Joe Linton, but we'll also support him as time goes on.
Agreed. Okay, lads, enjoy the game today. Everybody in the chat, thanks for your comments. That was a great show. Flies over when you get involved and give us some great questions to answer. I'll be back tomorrow to be confirmed who and with. Bit of an up and down week this week with when I'm available, but you'll still have 7 shows a week. Stu, Mitch, enjoy the game, lads. Thanks for your time.
You too, mate. Speak soon.
Take care.
Cheers, everyone.